The year is 15 AD, and the Roman Emperor, Augustus, is dying. The dying emperor needs an heir, so he decides on a quote-unquote military hero, Tiberius, which is a problem because Tiberius is kind of a dick. So Tiberius is forced to adopt Germanicus, a military hero that people loved, to make the people satisfied. That way, whenever he became emperor, no matter how bad he was, Germanicus was right around the corner, which is what everyone was banking on. Germanicus also had a son named Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, also known as Caligula. But who cares? He doesn't matter. He'll never matter. Life will be good forever. The next year, life was no longer good. In 1680, the great emperor Augustus died, meaning Tiberius was now in charge, and he was absolutely fucking ruthless. This is the story of Caligula, the craziest man who ever lived. Caligula came from two rich, well-respected parents that were very powerful. He grew up in military camps a lot, since his father was a military hero of the Roman army. 3 years after Tiberius took the throne, he said, I haven't killed anyone today. How about I kill my forcefully adopted son Germanicus? And so just like that, he had Germanicus poisoned, and his 2 oldest sons and wife exiled forever. It was just another reason the people hated Tiberius. I mean, this guy fucking sucked. He had killed dozens of people every week for years for seemingly no reason other than he was just batshit crazy. So it wouldn't have been a big deal for him if it wasn't Germanicus, the man next in line for position of emperor. Tiberius let Germanicus' youngest daughters and his youngest son, Caligula, survive, leaving them as orphans who only had each other, which made them close. One might say a little too close, but we'll get back to that. So to recap, the family tree is looking a little something like this, and I'm only going to include people who matter from this point on, so... Like I said, when Caligula was growing up, he had no one except for his sisters, and that made them really close. But one of his sisters, Julia Drusilla, got closer with him than the others did, which, we're gonna get to later. In 31 AD, Caligula was only 19, and Tiberius decided that it was a good day to be extra cruel, and ordered Caligula to be brought to him in his home. Caligula was forced to live there with him from then on, the man who killed and destroyed his family, and he often brought him in for questioning and asked him about his dead family that he killed, intentionally trying to piss him off. But when Tiberius wasn't making Caligula talk about his dead family, he was, doing things to children, boys and girls, and when he was done they would be thrown off of cliffs. Over time, Tiberius began to like Caligula, and even though his original intention was to kill him after a while, he decided not to. In fact, he would even, let Caligula watch him do that thing to children. And he also let him watch people get murdered. Even though Tiberius liked Caligula, the feeling definitely wasn't mutual. And there were many times that Caligula went into Tiberius's room while he was sleeping and held a dagger over him ready to kill the bastard, but he never ended up going through with it for some reason. In 36 AD, Tiberius decided that Caligula deserved to be the next emperor. So he brought him in and said, "Hey, so I'm gonna make you and your cousin, Gemellus, joint heirs to the Roman Empire. So what, I'll be the next emperor? Either you or your cousin, but I'm sure you'll be fair about it, right?" Right. Say, is this gonna be soon? Well, it won't happen until I die, which is gonna be a while. Oh. So, if you die, I can become emperor? Pretty much, yeah, why? No reason? There actually was a reason. Shockingly, Tiberius, died in his sleep the next year, 37 AD, and Caligula maybe probably smothered him to death. Whether or not that's true, there was still a question of who the next emperor would be, Caligula or his cousin Gemellus. Luckily for Caligula, he had a plan. See, this was the family tree when they were named heirs, so all Caligula had to do was take care of his cousin, and he would be the new emperor. Luckily for him, he had befriended a guard named Macro, and with his help, he had Gemellus captured and arrested, and decided to keep him there forever. So now there was no question, and Caligula became the new emperor. The people rejoiced over this, because now Tiberius, the terrible emperor, was dead, and the son of the beloved Germanicus was in charge. Caligula had a lot of responsibility. This was about the size of the empire when he took power. But this wasn't the time for business. This was the time to party. Celebrations commenced over the next 7 months. Caligula threw hundreds of parties himself. The people were having a great time, and so was Caligula. 7 months into his reign, Caligula became very sick. He spent the next month on the verge of death, and it wasn't looking good. Senators of Rome prayed to Jupiter, begging to take their lives to spare Caligula's. After about a month, he had survived and returned to the Senate to thank them. However, for some reason, Caligula was a changed man. Probably not because of his sickness, but he was no longer the man everyone loved. Something had broken. He had always been fucked up, but this was the turning point. He heard of the senators praying for him, and he went to see them. Yo, Senator. Oh my god, Caligula, it's a miracle. Oh, I don't know about a miracle. You prayed for me, didn't you? Oh, of course. Every day and night, 6 times. And I heard you begged to give your lives to save mine? Yes, absolutely. We were doing all we could. So, when are you gonna do it? Do what? You said you would give your lives so I may live. Sorry, I don't really see where you're going with this. Well, I'm alive, aren't I? When are you gonna fulfill your end of the promise? Caligula made the senators commit suicide one by one. The people must have started to freak out, but this would be the least of their concerns. Caligula made his sister, Julia Drusilla, the official title of Emperor's wife in 38 AD, but she died the same year, and he forced the people to grieve with him for 2 full, grueling months. After her death, he began to attend random weddings, just so he could force the couple to immediately divorce. Then he would marry and rape the brides, divorcing them within days and forbidding them from ever remarrying anyone again. He also liked to humiliate the Senate and senators, making them run alongside his carriage for miles. Caligula would throw dinner parties for the senators and told them to bring their wives with them. Throughout the night, he would choose one of their wives and take them to the back of the palace, force himself on them, then bring him back and make everyone act like nothing had happened. Now that the good times and partying were over, Caligula was ready to get to business. His first order of business was going to his cousin Gemellus, who was still in prison, and deciding to kill him. Then, his next order of business was to go to the guard Macro, who had helped him get in power, and decided to kill him. Then he found the writings of an old philosopher who said that Caligula had as much chance of becoming the emperor as he did riding his horse across the deep Bay of Bali. So he decided to kill him, but as it turned out, the philosopher was already dead, so proving him wrong was gonna have to do. And so, he seized hundreds of Italian ships for wood and material to construct a bridge across the Bay of Bali, and then he rode across it many times on his horse, in victory. But it turns out, losing a bunch of ships would be really bad. So, as long as Caligula didn't take, hundreds of ships to do something stupid, they wouldn't suffer a grain shortage. But now, surprisingly, they were suffering a grain shortage, so Rome was losing a lot of money, which probably led to the treasury running out of money in 39 AD. It was no problem though, he could take all the property of random citizens, and then execute them for no reason. Speaking of executions, his were extremely brutal. He didn't just get them over with, oh no. It would start with small cuts, and over time, it slowly became worse and worse torture, making it last as long as possible. In instances of some of his worst acts, he would call for children to be executed, and force their families to watch. Not just watch. He made them laugh and smile as if they were enjoying it, before being executed themselves. Later that year, he met and married Melonia Caesonia, who he had a daughter with, named Julia Drusilla after his incestual sister. He thought Melonia was really hot, and he paraded her around naked like the gentleman he was. But kinky Caligula really knew how to treat a lady, constantly reminding her he could order her throat to be slit at any time, cause that's just really hot. By this point, Caligula thought he was a real god, and claimed that he was talking to Jupiter quite often, and that he hung out with Hercules. So he must have felt really unstoppable when he decided to invade Britain in 40 AD. He marched 200,000 men up north and told them to go collect seashells on a beach while he returned to Rome. But while they were there on that beach, he ordered the men to stab and throw spears into the ocean in order to fight the god of the ocean, Neptune. When 41 AD rolled around, Caligula felt on top of the world, but he would soon learn that he was not. In theory, a Roman emperor could be as cruel as they wanted, but in practice, someone would rise against you and kill you. And that someone was a soldier named Cassius Chaerea. He had always been mocked and disrespected by the deranged emperor, but he had enough of Caligula's bullshit. He set up a plan to assassinate him. On January 24th, 41 AD, while Caligula was leaving the Palatine Games, Cassius and a group of guards attacked him. Cassius stabbed him first, and the rest joined in immediately. In total, Caligula was stabbed 30 times, and at the age of 28, was dead. Cassius's group went to Caligula's home before the guard could figure out what was going on, and they killed his wife and daughter too. After the assassination, his uncle, Claudius, became the next emperor, and he executed Cassius and his group. But the Senate rejoiced. They had his statues destroyed, and he was erased from their history. Caligula was almost entirely forgotten. But his actions were so terrible that his stories survived, and that's how we know of him today. The Roman people were finally free of Caligula's tyranny after his short 4-year reign, but just 14 years later, they would have a new emperor who would be just as bad as Caligula. But for now, they had temporary peace, now that the craziest man who ever lived was no more. So why did I make this video? Well, I think we can reflect on humanity's past and look at our worst outcomes. The suffering of the people under Caligula was brutal, but we can learn from our history, which happens far less often than it should. Maybe we can prevent anything like this from ever occurring again, but it can only happen with you, and yeah, you in the back with the chips in your hand right now. If we all learn about our history and what's gone wrong, we can prevent these things from ever occurring again. Thank you for watching.